Coutinho scores. Sanchez scores.
Chelsea are champions.
Hello, I'm Mark Chapman. Thanks for downloading the Football Daily. Both Arsenal and Chelsea are through to the knockout stages of the Champions League here at Stamford Bridge. Chelsea beat Porto 2-0. The performance of the night, though, was out in Greece as Olivier Giroud hat-trick saw Arsenal defeat Olympiacos 3-0. Here are the thoughts of Mark Lawrenson and our football correspondent John Murray.
Mark, I think there were plenty of doubters that Arsenal were capable of getting the result that they needed to get through, but they did it. And how highly would you rate their performance and achievement?
Very highly. I would have been one of the doubters. I think it's a really difficult thing to come and do what Arsenal have done against Olympiacos. And quite honestly, John, I mean, it was just a perfect night for them. We know about the home support here. It's very, very vociferous, very much back their team. First 25 minutes, it seemed to be all Olympiacos without them making too many opportunities. And when Arsenal got their goal, really, they hadn't started to play, but the goal just changed the whole complexion of the game. And you'd have to say, in terms of managing a football match, they did it absolutely brilliant. Scored the second one as well, you'd argue, at exactly the right time. And then the third. And to be quite honest with you, that really was game over with however many minutes there were left in the game.
And there have been plenty of doubters over the years about Olivier Giroud, but while it was a very good team performance tonight, Giroud will obviously get the headlines this morning.
Yeah, which is fine, but he scored the all-important first goal, which is always going to be, if you're in this situation and you need to actually win the game on opposition soil. He took the second goal. The first goal was well worked anyway, but the second goal was just an outstanding goal, and it was a great finish. And then obviously his penalty was the icing on the cake. But every single player for Arsenal tonight were excellent. And I would pick out as well Joel Campbell, who was very, very good. I'd kind of forgotten before that, of course, he spent a spell on loan here and scored against Manchester United, I think, in one of the games. Right. But he really did come of age. So from Arsenal's point of view, it's been an absolutely perfect night. Yes, they should never ever have been in this position, but they were, and they've coped with it. And you would hope now that they can kick on. They've still got the likes of Wilshere to come back, Cazorla, Sanchez, Welbeck, and who knows next February where they can possibly go in this competition.
And listen, you pointed out Joel Campbell there. I would also point out Petr Cech as well. And I think tonight was a real illustration, wasn't it, of what he brings to Arsenal.
Well, not only that, but if you look at the goalkeepers that he inherited Seaman, didn't he, Arsene Wenger, and then he got Lehmann, who turned out to be a really, really good goalkeeper. So he knew how important a position in that team. And he spent so many years messing around with what I would call not top-class goalkeepers. So the signing of Cech was a very, very important thing. Remember his first game at home in the league against West Ham, made all sorts of mistakes. Since that day, he's been absolutely fantastic. They say goalkeepers in the Premier League can win you 10 points. It's just as important as in the Champions League. Cech was outstanding, never made a mistake tonight.
And on the programme last night, when Mark Chapman put you on the spot and asked you which of the three English clubs in the last 16 would go the furthest, you actually picked out Arsenal. Are you standing by that?
Yeah, I've got to stand by that. But, you know, the reason is I think of all the injured players back by then, I just think when everybody's fit in this side and there's real competition for places over two legs, I think they'll give everyone a really good game.
And with more on Chelsea's performance, here's our senior football reporter, Ian Dennis.
Chelsea have beaten Porto 2-0, so they qualify as group winners. At the start of the evening, I said Mourinho to back his players. Well, after watching a determined display, I would say those players have backed their manager on a significant night at Stamford Bridge. There was a steely desire, an insatiable work ethic, and Mourinho's name reverberated from the stands. Chelsea's core very much solid tonight. There was an element of good fortune with the first goal after 12 minutes. Hazard through ball, Costa one-on-one with Casillas, who actually saved the shot, but the ball cannoned in off the legs of Meccano, the defender. The goal actually awarded by the additional assistant referee, despite the valiant efforts of Maicon. Chelsea did go close, Oscar, a couple of times, but the second goal was a wonderful effort from Willian. His first goal in open play, in fact, this season, because his previous 6 goals had all been direct free kicks. Willian's right-footed low shot rifled past Casillas, and that certainly had an animated Abramovich up and out. out of his seat. Hazard then with a low shot hit the post with 10 minutes remaining. You'd have to question Porto's tactics, because they only really showed attacking intent when they required 3 goals at 2-0 down. Tello forced a low shot, that was saved by Courtois, and there was also an earlier effort from Brahimi, a curling effort that was headed away by Ivanovic with Courtois at full stretch behind him, and Brahimi also went close in injury time. But for Chelsea, their job is done. They qualify as group winners, and because of that scoreline in Ukraine, Dynamo Kiev go with them into the knockout stages, and for Porto, they finished third in the Europa League.
We'll round up who's won all the groups and who's finished second and who's in the Europa League, and how the Europa League seedings are going to work as far as the Champions League clubs going into that competition in just a moment. We'll bring you Jose Mourinho and Arsene Wenger before 10:30, and we want to hear from you as well here on BBC 5 Live, 85058 at 5 Live Sport. Next, though, we're going to go to the Mestalla, where Gary Neville's first game in charge has ended in defeat. John Bennett.
Yes, Valencia 0, Lyon 2, whistles at the Mestalla. Valencia and Gary Neville having to settle for a place in the Europa League, just like his old club Manchester United. I wonder how he would analyse this one. I think he'll feel very unlucky, actually. Even in the first half in terms of chances, Lyon took the lead with a beautiful Maxwell Cornet curling shot. But in the second half, it was all Valencia. Gary Neville brought on Alvaro Negredo, the former Man City striker. He went to a 4-2-4 formation, but they just couldn't break through, and it was Alexandre Lacazette who made it 2-0 for Lyon against the run of play. As it happens, a win would not have been enough for Valencia, because Ghent beat Zenit, so Ghent are through to the last 16, but still a disappointing start for Gary Neville. He's into the Europa League, spent most of the match on the edge of his technical area. And next up, it's Eibar away in La Liga. Tough start for him though. Valencia 0, Lyon 2.
Let me give you the Champions League groups then, and how they have finished after the results this evening. So, and obviously last night. So the group winners: Real Madrid and Wolfsburg, Atletico Madrid, Manchester City, Barcelona, Bayern Munich, Chelsea and Zenit. Finishing second, Paris Saint-Germain, PSV Eindhoven, Benfica, Juventus, Roma, Arsenal, Dynamo Kiev and Ghent. Going into the Europa League, and 4 of these sides are seeded and 4 are unseeded. Andy Brassel, European football journalist, next to me, and they work that out on who has the highest number of points when finishing third in the Champions League.
Yes, that's absolutely right. So the seeded ones, Leverkusen, Manchester United, Olympiacos and Porto. The unseeded, Galatasaray, Sevilla, Shakhtar Donetsk and Valencia. So United could draw Valencia.
And of course Liverpool as well, so which could be very interesting going into the last 32 and the last 16. Let's go back out to Greece. John Murray and Mark Lawrenson still in position, and actually finishing second for Arsenal. All right, we discussed that maybe that's where they thought they might finish at the start, because they came in the same group as Bayern Munich, but there'll be a couple of sides that they might prefer to others in that list. John Murray?
Yeah, I think so. We mentioned Zenit St. Petersburg, we mentioned Wolfsburg in the commentary, but you know it's tough, isn't it? You know, when you get to that stage of the competition, I think the most important thing for Arsenal when they get there is to do themselves justice and don't make slips like they did against Monaco in the last 16 last season.
And I think, Mark, I was just going, and also obviously have a full list of fit players as well.
Jack Beardwell says Giroud, no pace but a great finisher. It's a bit of a surprise one of the big boys hasn't come in for him. I don't know I don't know what that says about Arsenal there from Jack, but I get sent them and I read them.
So wait a minute, chappers. So you think what do you mean one of the big boys, like who?
Well, I don't know. I'm assuming he's meaning European wide, and therefore I'm assuming he's meaning Paris Saint-Germain, Real Madrid, Barcelona or Bayern Munich.
Yeah, of course, Ibrahimovic, no good, Ronaldo, okay.
Kenneth saw Joel Campbell's wonderful World Cup performance. I thought to myself, he'll be a solid Arsenal player, and rightly so now. 85058 at 5 Live Sport. Ben is a relieved Arsenal fan. Evening, Ben.
Good evening, Mark.
Relieved that you've got through, but now what?
Well, I don't think anyone was looking beyond today in terms of the last 16. Most Arsenal fans were just looking at the permutations. We knew what the scoreline was. in order for us to get through. I'm just absolutely delighted we're in the last 16 and we keep that record going. Now we've qualified 16 times in a row. So come what may with the draw, we don't really care now.
Ben, can I ask you why the record matters?
I think, one of the sticks that Arsenal and Arsene Wenger are beaten with, certainly in his tenure, is the fact that we haven't won a hell of a lot in Europe. And it's true, it's a fair criticism, but we have qualified in the Champions League, from the group stages 16 times in a row. And that's more than anyone else in England. So it is a record of sorts. Obviously, trophies are nicer, but those sorts of records are things that Arsenal fans can also always point to with regards to how consistent we've been in terms of qualification.
Ben, when we talk about consistency, it's a problem that people have had with Olivier Giroud. Of course, last season he was strongly implicated in the home leg against Monaco, where he missed some big chances, and Arsenal blew it in that home leg, despite going out to Monte Carlo and winning. Has he redeemed himself tonight?
I think so. Giroud's one of those players that frustrates and delights in equal measure, certainly even if you're a neutral, and today was one of his nights. He scored a hat-trick for us for the first time, and he's more than capable of that. It didn't even look like he was going to have a chance to score a second with that right ankle being twisted. So you just never really know what to expect with Olivier Giroud. Sometimes he's completely anonymous, and that's when the frustration comes in. But equally, all credit to him, he was brilliant today.
Mark Lawrence, so why should reach in the last 16 be that important? Is that the equivalent of finishing fourth in the Premier League for 15 years on the trot and always qualifying for the Champions League?
Well,
you don't win anything.
No, revenue stream would be the first answer that would come to mind. Attracting Champions League players, probably the next. And I know what you're saying, Chappers, but I do think it's very, very important for Arsene Wenger. Don't forget as well, if you just forget a little bit about the football inside, played at Highbury, moved to the Emirates, seemed to make that's all bought and paid for, we're led to believe, seemed to make a profit of £50 million every year. All right, the argument is what they do with it. I fully understand that, but in terms of the shareholders, it's a massive, massive thing. It's the only really strange thing for me about Arsene Wenger, he had that team of invincibles and everything about that team, not just about the quality of football that they played, but all the way through the team. He had some warriors, he had outstanding players, he had a team that would go down in terms of lose the lead, or obviously lose a game 1-0, not lose a game, but losing in a game, 1-0, and come back, and he had fantastic characters. He's never really had the same team. In all honesty, that's the only mystifying thing about it. He's taken an awful long time to buy an absolute world-class goalkeeper. He is a stubborn man. I still think he's a very, very, very good manager, but I think reaching the Champions League is a big thing for them.
You know how you were saying during commentary that how would we go ahead with the social if everybody was going to be positive? John Murray, you can answer these. Matt says the next round will be better proof for Arsenal as they'll be playing the team much better than Olympiacos. Nick, next round normal service will resume. Bring on the big guns and Arsenal can put away their passports until the summer holidays again. RGB, English teams will be found out easily in the next round, most definitely during the quarter-finals, if any survive.
Well, look, it's really difficult to argue against that, isn't it? And I say that because, Mark, you and I sat and watched Arsenal against Bayern Munich when,
they pulverised.
They pulverised them. They were just at a different level altogether. So I can understand why people will say that, but that's the challenge, isn't it? You have to find a way. You have to find a way to try and get through. And
so I would just suggest, chappers, that if everybody were fit for Arsenal in the knockout stage, regardless of who they drew, I think they'd have a really good chance against a lot of teams in Europe. To be honest with you, I think. Because they get there and they always seem to get beat. They get Barcelona, they get whoever, and Bayern Munich and all those kind of teams. But I do think on their day, over two legs, if Sanchez is fit and everybody else, I think they're quite a tougher nut to crack, shall we say, and the goalkeeper's made a massive difference to them.
And when I say find a way as well, Mark, like they found a way to win against Bayern Munich in the first match when Bayern dominated the possession, but Arsenal won the game, and I don't think we should be too sniffy about it. If they managed to find a way, then we should applaud them for that.
Right, John's off to listen to Arsene Wenger. Alexis Sanchez has tweeted, "So happy for the victory of the team. We are in the next stage." Pumping muscle emoji, football emoji, 3 hand claps emojis.
He's probably just realised the bonus he's getting, Chappers, as well.
Jack Wilshere has tweeted, "What a performance, breathtaking, well done lads, proud." Keith is an Arsenal fan. Are you proud, Keith?
I'm actually a Villa fan, actually.
Oh, are you?
Yeah, sorry.
Excellent.
Am I proud of the Villa? Well, not really.
Given we started off on such a strong footing, what do you want to talk about, Keith?
I just wanted to talk about how I thought Joe Campbell was magnificent tonight. I thought he really came of age as an Arsenal player. He worked hard. Good touches, good energy, good composure, and it'd just be interesting to see whether Wenger has more trust in him after a performance like this tonight.
He will be. I thought we said in the commentary as well. We thought he'd come of age. We've seen him a few times. He was good at Swansea the other week on I think the right hand side of midfield. I think he actually got a goal that day as well. And then they went to Bayern Munich. And he looked like a little boy lost, but so did a lot of the other players. It's all part of your growing up. But I think tonight, considering the opposition, considering the nature of the game being an absolutely must-win game for Everton to continue in this competition, I thought he was excellent. And not just going forward, but also obviously running back towards his own goal and helping out defensively as well. And he seems to be going into it. Look, he's going to come into the side and do well for 2-3 games and then maybe go out and sit on the bench for a while. But we talk about the injuries, and he might be actually, because of the injuries in various positions, one of the bonuses that's come out in the last few weeks.
Well, he seems as if he feels like he belongs there now, where
exactly.
there was always doubts before, and now he seems like, yes, this is my club, this is home, and yes, I can play at this stage. And I thought it was excellent tonight. He's been disappointing, in, as I say, earlier on in his career, but tonight he was fantastic.
I couldn't agree more.
But you look at his career, since joining Arsenal, he's had 25 games for Lorient on loan. He's been at Betis, he's been at Olympiacos themselves, where he played over 30 times, Villarreal 15 times. He's 23 years old. And do you think sometimes, Mark Lawrenson, that when we're looking at players like this, they're going to have good games and they're going to have bad games? I mean, that's the case for every player. But sometimes we don't allow for the inconsistency of a man who at 23 is still young in terms of his Arsenal career.
Yeah, no, we don't. We don't because the Premier League, as a manager, you just have to win every single week. It's part of the normal pressure, and that's why he's allowed to go away and play for all these teams, Mark, where he might play not particularly well one week, but he probably knows he's still going to be in the team. It's all part of his growing up. But I always say, when people talk about, why does Wenger let him go away, why does managers let all these players go away and they see them play like that, is because when they're at the football club, the managers and the coaching staff see these players day in, day out, and generally they know when players are ready.
And it looked like tonight as if the team had belief in him also.
Yes, I think that's very, very important as well. You don't they've probably stopped looking at him as a weak link, and that's not being particularly kind, but that's the way it is. You look at a young player coming in the team and you're a little bit, well, what's he going to do? I'm not quite sure. Should I give him the ball? Should I not give him the ball? Will I get it back? Will he miscontrol it? Will he give it to the opposition? But that's all part and parcel of growing up. But tonight, I do believe he should go on to be a better player, most definitely, because of the experience.
Thanks for your call, Keith. Mike says, I can't quite believe it as an Arsenal fan. Am I dreaming? I must pinch myself. Paul, a brilliant performance from Chelsea tonight. Another clean sheet, some real class. They look like they are back. Jose, the greatest manager ever. Let's talk to Joe. I'm told you're a Chelsea fan. Joe, is that correct? You're not going to come on and tell me you support Morecambe or something, are you?
No.
Definitely Chelsea. Yeah. Excellent. Right. What do you want to say? Are Chelsea back?
I think probably the most interesting thing about tonight was just how much everyone in the side looked better about Fabregas playing. I mean, the past sort of couple of weeks and stuff, a lot of fans are saying that he's been the major reason why we've looked so bad defensively and with the ball as well. And I think tonight you saw Matic play probably his best game of the season. And also in the final third, we seemed to move the ball so much quicker, particularly for Willian's goal. It was 1 and 2 touch. And then obviously Willian gets a shot up and score. I don't think we've done that at all this season. So it'd be interesting to see going into Leicester if Fabregas is back in the team, because after tonight's display, particularly how well we looked without the ball and with the ball as well in midfield, I don't know whether he should be starting at the moment.
Could not agree with that more, Joe. I think if it's been a good night for Chelsea, and it was their best performance of the season, I don't think there's any doubt about that. It was a very bad night for Cesc Fabregas. Going back to the start of his Chelsea career, I assumed him playing in the 2 of a 4-2-3-1 would only ever be a temporary measure, or a measure that would be employed against weaker teams. But he just doesn't appear up to it in that slot when it comes to the biggest games. And, it always seems strange him being used there long term when, he was very much a player who played on the edge of the final third, at the very least at Arsenal. That was something he did at Barcelona, that sort of roaming role as well, almost as an extra attacker. And you're right, I think the ball does get caught deep in the Chelsea pitch with it, deep in the Chelsea half with him, which has really clogged them up. Of course, Ramirez is far inferior from a technical point of view, but he did exactly what was required of him tonight. And I have to say, in all the dips, as you say, Joe, I think you're absolutely right about Matic having his best game of the season. Yeah. And in all the dips of the Chelsea players this season, and there have been a lot of them, when Matic wasn't at it last season, or when he was suspended last season, that's when Chelsea run into problems, and his form has been a huge problem for Mourinho.
Joe,
how was Costa tonight?
Well,
guys?
that was actually going to be my question to Joe, on whether, for all the positives, whether there would still be a worry about Diego Costa. He was clean through for the first goal, hit it at Casillas, it rebounded, it hit Marcano on the knees, and then ended up in the back of the net. There were a couple of other chances that he had, and I noticed on his final chance, after he hadn't taken it, Joe, I don't know whether you saw this on television or whether you were here, but he ended up off the pitch, and he stayed off the pitch for maybe 10 or 15 seconds. And Mourinho, right in front of us here in the technical area, was so keen to encourage him and applaud him and try and get him back onto the pitch to get him going again. He looked bereft of confidence.
Yeah, I mean, I think with Costa, the main thing is he always takes sort of 2, 3, 4 games to kind of get into a kind of a role. And once he's sort of in that role, then that's kind of when the goals come. But I think probably the positive thing tonight, which is the first time this season, his movement was outstanding. He was dragging centre-backs all over the place. He wasn't getting into sort of unnecessary fights with people, which I think he's been sort of distracted with this season. He's just trying to sort of, particularly any centre-back who's sort of relatively physical, just fighting them for absolutely no reason whatsoever. This kind of game was everything but the goal. He had some heavy touches when he was through on goal. I think particularly one where he seemed to cushion the ball perfectly on the top of his instep, but then it went about 6 yards away from him. So it was one of them things where I was happy to actually see him kind of getting in stride, heading towards Leicester. Finishing a little bit erratic, particularly for 2 or 3 one-on-ones. But it's probably his best game this season in terms of sort of an overall performance. He was linking play well. He did well for the goal. With the kind of space he was creating, which again, part of last season, people look at his goals, but it was the fact that he dragged defenders everywhere on the pitch is one of the key things for him. And he sort of was starting to look a bit like that tonight.
Yeah, and whilst I agree with the majority of that, there were a couple of unnecessary little argy-bargies, weren't there?
It wouldn't be him without that, though, would it? I mean, I think sometimes, though, you think this season, particularly, I think back to the Stoke game with Shawcross, where he completely got sidetracked, and I think Shawcross even said after the game that there was sort of one moment in the game where he knew that Costa was in his pocket, and that was it. It was game over. He didn't have to worry about him for the rest of the game. So he wanted to play on the edge. I think the little kick out of Casillas was slightly funny, but also a little bit stupid. But he was kind of playing on the right side of the edge, for the first time in quite a while, and it kind of reflected in the performance, particularly with how we held the ball up and how we sort of held the second goal.
All right, Joe, thank you very much for your call. Porrig has dropped us a tweet saying, woo, Arsenal have scraped into the last 16, another new £7 million a year contract for Arsene Wenger, and yet John goes the other way. Some pundits on the BBC who knock Wenger, including Savage and Wright, may want to apologise tonight. Ed simply says, and that Manchester United is how it's done away from home. 85058 at 5 Live Sport. Olivier Giroud has told BT Sport this evening, fantastic for me, really pleased to go through. We weren't in a good position, but great for the fans and the club to go through. We are relieved. It's one level up in the Champions League. We had to be focused as a unit, defending well and finishing well. Now we can focus on the Premier League and carry on our good momentum. We want to go as far as we can. The target is to reach at least the quarter-finals. The 4th year I'm here, and we've never played a quarter-final. It's time to open a new page in the Champions League in February. As far as John Terry is concerned, he's spoken to television here at Stamford Bridge. There will be a lot of teams fearing us now in the Champions League, he says. We hope to go on a good run now if we carry on the form like that. He also said they aren't playing with confidence in the Premier League, but it's different in the Champions League.
The 5 Live Football Daily Podcast. All the day's football news sent direct to your computer. Podcast it now at bbc.co.uk/5live.
And on the Football Social after full time, we had callers on both Arsenal and Chelsea, and we discussed the news today that Swansea City sacked their manager Gary Monk.
This is 5 Live Sport with Mark Chapman.
Olivier Giroud, here he comes, it's in, it's 3-0, it's a hat-trick for Giroud.
Olivier Giroud fires Arsenal into the Champions League last 16 for the 16th successive season. It was Giroud's first ever hat-trick for Arsenal as he finally silenced his critics. Tweet at 5Live Sport. You can text us 85058 or you can call us 0500 909 693. Piers Morgan already eating humble pie this evening. Have Arsenal proved they have the ability and the mentality to go far in the Champions League? Chelsea also through to the last 16 as winners of Group G.
Here is Willian, and Willian fires the ball in, rifles it low, and Willian with his 7th goal of the season as Chelsea take a decisive step now towards the knockout stages and relief for Jose Mourinho.
Gary Neville's first game in charge of Valencia ends in a 2-0 defeat at home to Lyon, so they join Manchester United and Liverpool in the Europa League. And who should replace Gary Monk as manager of Swansea, and are the players to blame for his downfall? At 5 Live Sport, 85058 0500 909 693. You can talk to Mark Lawrenson and European football journalist Andy Brassel until 10:30. So, let me just remind you of the group winners in the Champions League and the runners-up. Real Madrid, Wolfsburg, Atletico, Manchester City, Barcelona, Bayern Munich, Chelsea and Zenit St. Petersburg are the group winners. Paris Saint-Germain, PSV Eindhoven, Benfica, Juventus, Roma, Arsenal, Dinamo Kiev and Ghent go through as the runners-up. Gab Marcotti's just tweeted 10 different countries representing the Champions League knockout rounds. Assume that's more than previous years. Do you know, Andy Brassel, as you are my European football expert, is that more than previous years? 10? Sounds it.
It seems so.
Yeah, let's go with that. There you go. We've confirmed it. It seems so. Going into the Europa League from the Champions League, i.e. the sides that finished third, Bayer Leverkusen, Manchester United, Olympiacos and Porto. Those 4 are seeded. Unseeded, Galatasaray, Sevilla, Shakhtar and Valencia. Mark Lawrenson, are the Arsenal fans still in the stadium where you are?
They are being held back, yes they are. They are starting to sing, obviously trying to keep themselves warm. It's just starting to turn a bit nippy.
Yeah, but they don't care, do they, really, at the moment?
I wouldn't have thought so unless they need a wee or something, no.
85058 at 5 Live Sport. Jose Mourinho has spoken to television. They were really committed to getting a result, a lot of pride. They didn't want to go to the Europa League. A second consecutive defeat would be an attack to their pride. They were compact, had initiative to try and win, even though a draw would have been good enough. In the Premier League it looks like everything goes against us, but today was an important result for the players and the club. Being in the last 16 of the Champions League is very important. It is the minimum we can give to our supporters. They are unbelievable in their support to me. I'm sorry I can't give them more.
Chappers?
Yes.
You know, I just saw a clip here, obviously, while the news was on Radio 5, and it was Abramovich applauding. He was at the game, yes?
Yes.
Was he applauding the goals or was he applauding the result, do you know?
I think he was applauding the second goal on that shot that you have seen.
And do you... well, sorry, carry on.
No, well, we're not on the gantry tonight. We're in the lower press box, which gives you an
can't see.
Gives
you
you
can't see anything.
No, it gives you an indication of how fast the game is going because you are at pitch level, but it doesn't give you a great view of the stadium and the surroundings.
And we're not sat next to Roman.
I just wondered whether he was actually applauding the fact that he didn't have to make a decision about Jose.
Well, let's talk to Michael, who is a Chelsea fan. Do you think if you hadn't gone through tonight, Michael, he would have had to have made a decision about Mourinho?
No, not at all. I cannot go with this Mourinho out facade. It's ridiculous. That was a proper team performance tonight. One that I think we've threatened to do for a few weeks. I thought against Spurs, I thought we'd turn the corner, and then Saturday a result that nobody expected, nobody anticipated, but tonight, they showed. And one of the keys for me, no Fabregas. No Fabregas giving the ball away 20 times in a game. And I just hope that he will see sense, Mourinho, and leave him out, because that's the catalyst for the problems.
How long have you been feeling like that about Fabregas? Because when we announced the teams prior to kick-off, there was quite a lot of traffic on the text and on social media from Chelsea fans very happy that he wasn't starting. So you're obviously not alone in your feelings. I just wonder how long you've been feeling like that.
Since the back end of last season. Fabregas went on holiday probably with about 7 or 8 games to go last season, in my opinion. And I just think this season he's been awful. He's a great player in a great side when they're playing well. But when we were struggling towards the back end of last year, we were running on empty. And this year we've been a struggling side, and he's been found out. And I think he's been our weakest link.
But you don't feel the same about, say, Eden Hazard, whose form has dropped off, who, interestingly, I thought had quite an encouraging game tonight?
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that. Certainly at the start of the season, Hazard wasn't the player. Maybe there was a little bit of complacency set in there, same as Costa. And I thought Costa was a man mountain tonight. I thought he deserved a goal tonight and for his performance. Silly thing with Casillas, that Costa's got that in him, unfortunately. But I thought to a man we were magnificent tonight. Terry led it from the back line, and Zuma, that's the ideal partnership for me, because Zuma is learning all the time from Terry. Cahill will overtake him at some point, but I just think tonight, we put in a performance that warranted a result like that, and we thoroughly deserved it.
Laura, are you surprised at I was going to say Fabregas' demise, but that might be slightly too dramatic, but his loss of form?
Yeah, I am. But this was coming kind of February, March time last year. Sorry, it wasn't coming, it came February, March time, and then we kind of thought, well, have the summer off, rest up, won the league, and then, the start of this season that he would kick on and resume where obviously he was at the start of the season before the first 5 or 6 months, but it just really seriously hasn't happened to him, and he looks like he's lost half a yard, Mark, and with that half a yard he seems to have lost an awful lot of confidence. He can't get himself around the pitch into the areas where he can be a real player for Chelsea, to be quite honest with you, every time I've seen him. Yes,
that's the second time tonight that you've mentioned that Fabregas' problems going back to February, March. Would you say that's the same thing for Chelsea globally, and that it's something that was unaddressed over the summer, which led to them starting this season so poorly?
Well, I don't know. It was difficult to gauge the end of the season, really, Andy, because they won the Premiership very, very easily, didn't they? And sometimes there can be a tailing off, because obviously you come back at the start of the season, everyone's browbeating you, saying got to win the league, got to win the league, got to win the league. And when you're in such an advantageous position around about February and March, you're going to win it because no one else can catch you anyway because they're not playing well enough. It's not unusual for teams just to tail off a little bit, but it has been a really, really strange thing. And I may be wrong with this, but already this season, hasn't Mourinho left out every outfield player that would normally be in and around the squad, even the ones that don't necessarily start regularly? So that tells you something about it. But I do feel the major thing is Costa. I think the thing with Costa is I don't believe he really wanted to come back to Chelsea this season. I don't know why. He came back overweight, and I think he can be a real handful off the pitch as well as on the pitch, and that's a real problem. And consequently, if your best forward player, well, your only, you could argue, because obviously he just plays up front on his own. If your only forward player like that is not performing, it's very, very difficult actually to win a load of games, and that's exactly what's happened with them.
We're going to talk to Tony, who's an Arsenal fan, in just a moment, but first let's get the thoughts of Arsene Wenger after that 3-0 win in Greece.
I think it is a fantastic achievement for us, because When you look at the lost in the last 3 weeks, we lost Coquelin, we lost Cazorla, we lost Sanchez, and we came with all the other injuries who were already out. I think not many people gave us a chance, but we are a real team in the dressing room. This team is very close, and you could see that again today. You needed a perfect performance to score without conceding a goal. But it's not easy here because we are a good side. It is a special night for us because, as we said before the game, we are in an escape mode, before the game, and you needed something special. And when you can deliver something special, you can create a positive memory for the rest of the season. Maybe it's a lucky year for us in the Champions League. You never know.
Maybe it's a lucky year, Tony, for you in the Champions League. You never know.
Houdini Wenger this evening, isn't it? Coming back from bottom of the group and qualifying in second place. It's fantastic. I thought Campbell had a massive game this evening. Everyone's going to be talking about the hat-trick, but Campbell really sort of did a job up front, didn't he? And Koscielny was doing well tonight. He sort of made up for all Mertefacker's slips, and it was just a real grinding performance against the team that was seeded 3 in the group, it has to be said.
Do you feel it's special, or without weeing on your bonfire, I suppose, do you worry that it's another false dawn?
Well, I think, if we look at this analytically, Arsenal at the moment are seeded 1 in the Champions League. And so, by rights, they should always get through to the last 16 because there will be 2 poorer teams in their group. If we don't get first seeds in the future, we could easily slip down into pot 3, and then we'll have much tougher fixtures. So, if you look at the way it's set up at the moment, Arsenal should always get through to the top 16 and then promptly be eliminated if their team's not up to it.
Andy Brassel alongside me. I think with English arrogance sometimes we look at who's qualified and then go, all right, well if you take Real Madrid and Barcelona out there, and obviously Arsenal can't draw Bayern, then they'd be happy to get Wolfsburg or Zenit.
Zenit perhaps. They've mounted a very, very poor defence of their Russian Premier League title under Andrei Villas-Boas, but they've been very, very good in the Champions League. And I think a lot of people, including me actually, looked at them maybe not getting out of that group and Lyon and Valencia getting through it. So it's a great achievement. Other than that, I think, there are some tough nuts in that. I think Atletico coming into their very best form, finishing top of the group last night, was a really real signal of their intent. I think there's a strong argument that they're better than Real Madrid this season. Who of course are another possibility for Arsenal. So there are some difficult teams in there.
Mesut Ozil has just tweeted. I probably won't do this tweet justice, I wouldn't have thought, but
you have to sing it.
I'm not singing it. No,
you have to.
No, I can't. No, Giroud. It's roughly like that, isn't it, Tony?
Yeah, that was a cracking hat-trick this evening, wasn't it?
Concentrate on the hat-trick rather than me talking through an Arsenal chant. Let's hear Arsene Wenger's thoughts on his French striker.
He was sometimes in uncomfortable positions. He did fight like mad, and he has shown skill and character. And Olivier, I always defended him on the character side because I always said that he has something special on that front. He has shown it again today.
Well, thank you very much, Tony, for your call.
Mark,
yes.
I was just going to say to you, yes, obviously Arsenal have done extremely well tonight. It was a real team performance. Giroud gets all the headlines. And much is made about the injuries. But I reckon, just count these and bear with me for a sec. Cech, Bellerin, Mertesacker, Koscielny, Monreal, Ramsey, Ozil, and one of Walcott or Giroud. Is that 8? Wouldn't they be in their best team?
Yes. Yeah,
it's
you're missing Sanchez and Coquelin, aren't you, really?
Yeah,
from
well,
there?
that's
fair
two
to say,
make 10, and maybe Coquelin.
Yeah.
But a team that we keep saying has qualified for the last 16 of the Champions League 16 years in a row or 17 years in a row can hardly be moaning about a few injuries because we know they've got incredible resources available. And I think that kind of showed tonight.
John Murray, what was Arsene Wenger's mood? I mean, it obviously comes across as very serious when you're listening to the clips of the interviews, but overall, what was he like?
No, satisfied, Mark, as you can imagine. I've just been sitting there in the press conference room. I said to him, is this one of your, right up there with your great European results? And he said, yes, it is. But a couple of interesting things. The questions on the individual players were obviously about Giroud and about Joel Campbell. But on Giroud, he said that, because we don't often see Olivier Giroud taking penalties, do we? Although he was on a hat-trick, wasn't he? But he said he was on the list to be the number 1 penalty taker for this match. Walcott was number 2, Ramsey was number 3, but he said he took it well. He said he practiced in training and was quite good. And he said it's a perfect performance from Giroud to score a header, to be involved in the combination for the second goal, and then to score the penalty. And he talked about the character. But almost more interestingly, on Joel Campbell, who was obviously here at Olympiacos, so there were interested Greek questions about Joel Campbell. He said that he's always been a good player individually, but he said he's a real team player, and we know that that's what really floats Arsene Wenger's boat, doesn't it? Someone who can contribute to the team. And he says he's now reached an age, he's 23 now, where he's, becoming a rounded footballer. And he spoke as well, I know you mentioned it earlier in the programme, Mark, about the loans that he's been on, Lorient, Real Betis, here at Olympiacos, Villarreal. He said that also coming from Costa Rica, his background there, he said, don't underestimate him. He's a tough player. And I think over the course of the last month, 6 weeks, his progress has been rapid.
And the other thing, Mark, with him, he's one of those strange players, the 2 or 3 times I've seen him live, who actually runs quicker with the ball than without it.
Let me read some texts and tweets on the big managerial news of the day, which is Gary Monk sacked by Swansea. Dan says gutted, should have given him a 4-point target over the next 2 games, and if he'd hit that target, allow him to spend cash in January and we'd be back on form. Ian says sadly results didn't go his way, even though his team played out of their skins. Listening to some other Swansea fans this evening, I think they would doubt that the team played out of their skins. Paul says we're a low scoring team, critical that Boney wasn't replaced and players have not responded. We'd also become shapeless. Clive is a Swansea fan. Evening, Clive.
Good evening.
Are you sad that Monk has gone?
I am very sad. Very sad.
Why?
Well, I think the man has done over the years. The man has tried from coming in as a player, captain. He's got ourselves right up to the Premier Division. He's, how can I explain that? He's held the team together. He's formed a nice team together. He bought some damn good players that fitted in with each other. I thought a month ago when it was in the papers that the press, the managing board would have wanted him to have an aide to help him. Now, with Rodgers being out of work at the time, I thought they might have sounded him out, talked to him behind the scenes and said, could you two work together? And I thought those two working together would have been absolutely brilliant. And I think Monk would have worked with him. I just don't understand why just get rid of him when it's the players at the end of the day that haven't done their job.
But Clive, do you think that that's one of the things that Monk has struggled with this season? Obviously Swansea have tried to take a step up. They've got some big players in like Andre Ayew, who of course has played for a huge club in Marseille. But do you think managing those egos is something problematic for a guy who's 36, even if he does know the club incredibly well?
I think so, because watching you against Bournemouth the other day, Ayew was with Leon Bredon, in all fairness to him. They were the only 2 players that seemed to be wanting to gee up the players. The other players, all they wanted to do was to play up to the halfway line, back the goalkeeper the halfway line, and that just seemed about it. I mean, I would have preferred if they'd done the old long ball system and just shoved the ball into the box and see what the forwards can do. But there was just no forward attack whatsoever. Sad to see.
Who would you like to be your next manager?
I honestly don't know. I honestly do not know, because in all fairness to Monk, he's done a brilliant job. Okay, there's movement, but I thought they would have given him another game or 2, or at least till Christmas, see how it goes. That's just one of those things in life, isn't it?
Clive, thank you very much for your call. Mark, if we're saying that the dressing room hasn't been great, and there are a lot of egos, and the players have let him down, given that a lot of Swansea's appointments have been quite clever, and maybe inexperienced managers have often got the job. Not necessarily Michael Laudrup, but a lot of the others when they were appointed, not the most experienced.
Brendan Rodgers.
Do you think they might need to go down a different path and appoint somebody with more experience this time?
I'm not sure that they do, Mark. I really don't think so. I think we said at the top of the programme as well that everyone's in agreement that the players need to look at themselves. There's nothing wrong with the ability of Montero, Gomez, Ayew, Sigurdsson, Shelvey, all those kind of players are good players. It just sounds like they need a bit of a rocket up them. So, and the thing about it, the new manager comes in. Let me put it this way: will you be surprised at, let's say, the middle of February if Swansea aren't about 11th, 12th in the league at worst? Because I wouldn't be.
No.
And also as well, and a little bit cynical, are there one or two contracts up at the end of the season, or one or two playing for the contracts, or are quite a few of these players on 3 or 4 year contracts in the first year and very, very comfortable? Thank you very much indeed. I think therein lies the problem for me, not the manager.
And as far as who might replace him goes, Andy Brassel, just looking at The Guardian this evening, who are reporting that Hugh Jenkins has got someone lined up, are they saying, from overseas?
Well, that's right. Stuart James reports that they're planning to make a pretty quick appointment, and some of the names under consideration include Dennis Bergkamp, although it's my understanding that he's quite happy being a number 2 and being a bit publicity shy at Ajax. Gus Poyet, who's only just taken over at AEK Athens, as we heard from John Murray earlier, and Mark Warburton was another who was put out there.
Although that's strictly not overseas.
No, exactly, none of them. But apart from that, it's all going really well.
Just a little bit over the border. Let's definitely now go overseas. Valencia beaten this evening by Lyon. So Gary Neville's first game ending in defeat. His side now in the Europa League. Let's hear from the new manager.
I thought we got control of the game more with Javi and Danny in there, but it just didn't quite come for us the moment that we needed just to get back in the game. I felt if we'd have scored on around 60 minutes, I think at that time Zenit must have scored. It felt like the whole stadium, that extra impetus and adrenaline would have thrown through the players, but then the counter-attack came, the sucker punch. I've seen it as a player, and I've now seen it as a manager. The counter-attack, the way you have to run back to your own goal, and it was a clinical finish. But from my point of view, I didn't feel stressed at all. I don't feel stressed now. To me, that's not stress. Stress is real life when you have real life situations. I think that from my point of view, to come in here and talk about stress would be the wrong thing to do. I don't feel that way. I'm disappointed. I'll obviously in the next few days evaluate what went on and the decisions that were made, the changes that I made during the game and how I could have done anything different. But that's, again, something that's normal for me when I'm looking at any team.
Well, without stating the obvious, Mark Lawrenson, he's going to need time as well.
Yeah, of course he is. Of course he is. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger as well. Could you imagine if they happened to win tonight, Mark, as well? The other way around, it will be, we're absolutely fantastic. He's done a magnificent job, and then you go and lose at the weekend in La Liga. Listen, it's going to take him time just to know about his players. That's the important thing. It's also going to take him time, you would imagine, even with Phil being there, Phil Neville, to know what his best team is going to be. And interesting tonight, brought Negredo on, which obviously he wasn't one of Jorge Mendes's players, was he? So, the agent. So, listen, just give him some time. I think he'll be absolutely fine. He's got a real chance because they're actually a good side, Valencia. So they should certainly, I would have thought, finish in the top 5 or 6. And then who knows after that, at the end of the season, going forward, what exactly is going to happen. But I tell you what, he will learn something every single day. And I would always say, as a manager, when you win, it's far more enjoyable than as a player, because you are actually responsible for, say, if you bring 3 subs on, 14 of your players actually, and it's culpable in terms of the difference between winning as a player and winning as a manager.
It's really about lifting spirits for him at the moment, because I think it's pretty clear that morale is on the floor. Goal scoring is a problem, and I agree, Mark, that bringing back Negredo I mean, it's kind of a bit desperate tonight because Gary Neville said himself in recent days that Negredo isn't fit enough. He's been out of the squad because he fell out with Nuno, the previous coach, and he needs working on. But they need that focal point up front. You know, they scored 5 goals in 6 Champions League games, and 2 of those were own goals. So it's pretty clear where their problems lie. It's been a problem in La Liga as well. So that's something he's going to have to work on pretty quickly. And you know what? He hasn't got much of a winter break to do it either, because there's a gap between the 20th and the 30th of December, which is when the second game, the first game after Christmas, is played in Spain, and they play again on the 2nd and 3rd. So he's got a lot of work to do, and very quickly.
Only got 90 seconds.
Mark,
yes.
Well, sorry, very, very quickly. How could Valencia get themselves in such a mess where an agent had the manager in situ and also was in charge of like 10 of the players? I mean, what on earth is all that about? Agents running football clubs?
Well, it's just the basis of how they were taken over. Peter Lim and Jorge Mendes, of course, business partners going back for a while. And Valencia fans didn't really ask many questions at the beginning because they were so glad not to be on the brink of extinction anymore.
Let's end with Patrick Jackson's question. Which English side do you think will go furthest in the Champions League? Mark?
Arsenal.
Do you?
Well, yeah. Why you sound surprised? No, I do. I do. Listen, a lot depends on the. Listen, the thing about City, you just don't know with Manchester City at the moment which City turn up. If they've got company in the side in the Champions League, got a real chance. But I'm having just a little punt that I think Arsenal might go further.
Andy?
I have to say City now, don't I?
Yeah. John?
You don't have to.
You don't have to. John?
I want to.
In a Lawrenson style, I'll have a little punt on it being Chelsea.
Right, just so that one team has been covered by each of you.
Claude. It's after you, Claude.
And because that's what Chelsea will have to play for.
Can I just say, chappers, by the way, I went first. Just remember that.
You did go first. And a final conclusion, you've got 10 seconds, John. But when we thought we could have lost 3 out of 4 English sides from the Champions League tonight, we now have 3 out of 4 through.
Yes, we were all braced, weren't we, to be so negative and downbeat about the whole thing. But there we are. Plenty to look forward to in the last 16.
Best league in the world. What's wrong with you?
Hey. That's all. Thanks for listening. On Thursday, there's a 5 Live Managers Question Time special.